All right, let's get started again. I ran the program and I want to show you something. I'm going to give you, you're going to have a chance to key in all this in just a second, but I want to show you something. All right? When we ran it before, we did this and said enter your first name, said enter your last name, and that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think anybody disagree with that. This, I put a little prompting in there also. Okay? Why? Because you just don't want them to screw up. All right, so they know. But what you're going to see next is when we get to the hours worked, it's going to say, please enter hours worked between 0 and 84. You want to make it as hard as possible for someone to screw up. All right? So see that? Now, if they still put in a number that's less than 0 or greater than 84, there's not much you can do about that. All right. Now, typically, if you, for example, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's set up like this. Am I right or wrong? Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. Let's say you try to get into Inside Rankin, okay? And you type in your login, and it asks for a password, and you put it in. Geez, that's wrong. So you get an error. Oh, let's go with this. You put it in again, and it's still wrong. So you get an error. So you do it a third time. Well, a lot of times with a lot of systems, and I don't know if Inside Rankin's like that or not, it locks you out. Why? It's doing that to protect you, right? Because it thinks that maybe somebody else who's not you is trying to get in as you. Make sense? All right. I could do something similar to this, but if I keep putting in 111, 111, 111, 111, 111, I mean, that's idiotic. I could, literally, I could sit there and after 3 attempts, I could come back and say, I don't think you get this. And I could either set it to something myself or just quit the program. All right? But I'm just going to, so as long as you keep putting in things that are out of range, the program will keep spitting back to you. All right? Now, what we could have done is on this first one that said, please enter hours worked, all right, between this and this, we could have said here, out of range, please enter. We're going to do that when we get to the GUI one. We'll do that. All right, and here I just decided to keep it like this. All right, so notice that once I put in a valid value, now notice what it says. Please enter an hourly rate between 0 and 100. Here's a question for you. This number here, this number here, this number here, and that number there. Did I physically type in those numbers? No. I used the constants. All right? So, if you want to see that code, and I'll leave it up here, and then we'll move it down, but this is the code first. That's the code that I added or changed for the hours worked. So I'll leave that up there for 5 minutes or so. Then I'll drag it down so you can do the stuff for the hourly rate. All right? That's all we're going to do on this program for today. I'm not going to break it up into modules. We'll do that. We're just not going to do that today. I want to get on to the other program. All right? Now, you're not turning these programs in. So if you're like, I'm not doing that, then don't do it. But I guarantee you, when you take your test, it'll be either the next test, not the one this week, but it'll be your next hands-on test or the one after that. You will have to do this. That's why I'm introducing it to you right now. All right? The programs that we did previous to this, there wasn't a lot of logic to them. We're starting to add logic. The only logic that we put into any program before this one was in that last GUI. You have to click yes if you want, or yes or no if you want the program to continue or not. Other than that, we had no logic. We're adding logic. I think that was the beginning of it, wasn't it? Yep, that's it. When we get done with this, in probably about 10 minutes, we're going to be finished with this one for now. Then we're going to go to and make a copy of our GUI one we did, and we're going to add validation to the GUI one. It's done a little bit differently, but it gives me a chance to show you some other stuff that I think is going to be very helpful down the road. This is the time when you take your first test Friday, just so you know this, there'll be 2 problems on it. What are they? I haven't written it yet, but there'll be 2 problems on it. One of them I will ask you to do, and I will ask you to do it console like we're doing now. One of them I will ask you to do it, and I will ask you to do it as a GUI. Not the same program. It'll be 2 different programs. All right? The first test or 2, you'll have 1 of each. Then afterwards, I'll say, you can do it GUI, you can do it console. Does that make sense to everyone? But when I go over them in class, as the saying goes, I can guarantee you that every one that I write will be a GUI one. But I'll still, if you decide that you want, when we get to that point, Matthew says, man, I love these frickin' console programs and I hate these frickin' GUI programs. Then he should write all of his as console. I will tell you that the majority of stuff that's out, what would you guess? The majority of the applications, are they console or are they GUI? GUI. I said this before. You buy this book. Human nature says, what's the first thing you do with this book? Not check the price. I mean, once you bought it, what's the first thing you do with a book? You go like this. What are you doing? You want to see how many pictures are in it. Because we live in that kind of world. You might be better off when you get all this done, just copying it and then replacing what was in the other one with this and just changing hours to rate. But that's up to you. I've got one student, he's one of the world's worst typists, and he doesn't do copy and paste. So he just boom, 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 boom. So I've told him this semester, we're not slowing down for you. This is doing probably what you think it would be doing. This says while the hours are less than 0 or the hours are greater than 84. So as long as you keep putting in invalid values, it's going to keep going into the body of this while loop and asking you to do it again. So again, if you want to do this, you could always write in here, error. Like that, if you want to do that. Which means I'll put it in here too then. You don't have to do that, but you can if you want to. just so you know, because some books say it and some don't, this right here, this line, that's attempting to read a valid hours. If I put a valid number in there, I never go into this while loop. Does that make sense? That's called, typically it's called a priming read. It's like you prime a pump to get it going. That's attempting to read. If it's successful, you totally skip the while. You go right down to your next one. If that's successful, you skip that while. All right? And if you say, I sort of get it, but I sort of don't, if you're reading your book, when we get to that point in the book, so far we've only done the first 2 chapters. Chapter 3 is on GUIs. Guess what? You know everything that's in there. Chapter 4 is making decisions. All right, that's the if statement. Chapter 5 is looping. Okay? So you're not going to learn a lot more in chapters 3, 4, or 5 than you already know. And you have to let me know if I'm wrong, but like I said, I think this works better to show it to you than talk about it. All right? You see it in action, you're doing it already. You're like, oh, okay, that's what you meant by that. Does everybody have this? And I know some of you don't type fast, but does everybody have what's in blue? Yes? Anybody who doesn't, that wants to admit it? All right. Then I'll move up to the other one. Can you see, though, how this routine is already getting pretty big? And how we're going to want to bust this out into methods, which is just separate routines? All we're going to do is just grab this stuff and put it in its own routine. Those of you who were in the class last semester, maybe you remember this, maybe you don't. When we started doing CSS, we put it at the top of our HTML file. Then eventually we broke it out and put it into its own file. What we were doing, or what were we doing? We were modularizing it. That's exactly what we're going to do here. Again, if you're wise, so to speak, you realize this right here that I'm putting my mouse over like it's got something wrong with it, that stuff is the same as this, except in one of them I'm saying hours, max hours, min hours. The other one I'm saying rate, max rate, min rate. You find that a lot in computers. There's a lot of patterns. And a lot of what programming is it's pattern recognition. And if you can do that where you're recognizing patterns, that's a great start. All right, they've done studies, and that's why people who are musically inclined are oftentimes make really good programmers because they understand patterns. Wish it went the other way because I've been trying to teach myself to play guitar for years and I just suck. So what do we have now? We've got a fully functioning payroll system. It sure as hell is not perfect. All right? It's harder to do some of this stuff on the console side as opposed to doing it on the GUI side. You probably could take all the code we're going to put in the GUI side, starting in just a couple minutes, put it in the console side and make it work. All right? But you'd have to do a lot of changing around of stuff. My question to you is, we have a first name, a last name, a union status, an hours worked, and an hourly rate. Is there anyone in here who doesn't understand how we inputted any of that stuff, including the validation, and how we figured out the gross pay? Now, sometimes people have questions like, well, no one else is asking, so I'm not going to. If that's the case, all right, if we're running through this and you're really having troubles, send me an email. All right, and the last thing I'll mention about that is you all know this, except you two, but before you got here, Colin would sit there. And Colin, he's already taken this class. He's in the Java class in the afternoon. He has told me that once you guys get going in here, if people have trouble, he's willing to tutor. Now, if that's the case, you have to let me know if you think you're going to need a tutor. You don't know right now. You go, oh, damn, I need a tutor. No, you don't. We're doing a lot of data entry right now, and I'm trying to give you an overview. Probably if he tutors you, he'll have to do it electronically, which means you'll have to send him files. He'll look at them and talk with you electronically because he works a lot of hours. But he's the only person who came up and said, hey, I wanted to let you know that if, I know most of those people in there and I'm willing to tutor. There is no charge if you want to be tutored. And the tutor is paid. Not by you, by Rankin. But there's a lot of hoops they have to go through. He has to fill out a bunch of paperwork. It has to be blessed over at St. Louis because everything has to be blessed over at St. Louis. All right? And all I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious, but there's a person, a student services coordinator over there who's got to look and say, Colin's an A student, but if he was an F student, they probably wouldn't want him to be a tutor. So think about it as we get going in here. And if you're running into problems, let me know. Again, anything that we've done here, anything that we've done today or yesterday that doesn't make sense. All right, then probably what you want to do if you haven't done it already is do a save all. You should run it again and make sure that nothing's broken. Again, if I put something out of range, and remember it's a double. Look on the screen if you would, please. Remember it's a double. So if I put in this, is that legal? I mean, it's a legal number, but is that legal for what I'm doing? No, because it's more than 84. Our program sure as heck better catch that. So when you're checking things, you always want to check extremes. Now, the lowest number we can put in is 0. So if I put in negative 0.1, that should be illegal too. And it is. All right. 50 hourly rate, again, negative 0.1, it shouldn't take that. 100.01, it shouldn't take that. If it does, it means some of my code is wrong. Then you go back and you start debugging. That's a logic error then if the program runs, but it's giving you wrong output. It's a logic error. So if I come in here now and say 10, boom, I'm done. All right? Now I want to show you very quickly what we are eventually going to get to. This main, this routine right here, eventually all that routine is going to do is call other routines. That's what main is supposed to do. Main is supposed to be a driver. You heard some of this last semester with JavaScript. But what main is supposed to be like a conductor of an orchestra. The conductor typically doesn't play an instrument, but she or he twirls their baton and says, come in now, be louder, be softer. They're a coordinator. They make everything go, so to speak. That's what main is supposed to do. Right now we're having main do double duty. Not only is it our program entry point, but it's got all our code in it. Eventually, it's going to be our program entry point and our driver. And you need to do something else? Add a routine. So the time may come in here, please listen to this, the time may come in here when you take a test, and your test might be, okay, we'll have done that ourselves. We'll already make it into a driver, etc. But I might say, okay, I want you to add 4 new routines. I want you to add FICA. Always my favorite Friends episode when Rachel says, who the hell is this FICA and why is he taking all my money? All right? But FICA, Social Security, all the other stuff, we could do that. Eventually after. You could do that right now. But you'd have to add it in main. But eventually we'll build our own routines. So I may very well go back to a program you've already done and ask you to add extra routines. Does that make sense? That's where you're seeing whether or not you really understand something. All right? I mean, if you want to give yourself a little test, go back and see if you can write this program from scratch. Don't have it in front of you. Now, you might forget how to do some stuff. But if you can do that, then you've understood everything we've talked about thus far. And I'm already giving you stuff that's in Chapter 5. And don't think, well, why the hell are you doing that? You're just screwing with us. No. You're going to eventually have to use that in every program you do. I'm introducing logic on the third day. We didn't do much logic yesterday. All right? So, again, one last save, and I'm going to do a file. And, in fact, I'm just going to exit right now. And what I'm going to do then, and this is what I would like you to please do, is to our second program that we're going to work on now, go to your payroll 3, again, Control-C to copy it, again, Control-V to paste, and instead of calling it program 3, I'll call this one 3A. If you don't like those names, call it whatever you want. It really and truly does not matter. All right? But what I want us to do in this program, and we've got about an hour and 20 minutes to do that, is we're going to do a lot of the same stuff, but on the GUI side, but we're going to make it even better. All right? And if you say, well, what do you mean? I want to just show you this, okay? Because I've already got it written, as you probably would guess. I don't know where the heck I've got this. That's not it. That's my Java stuff. Well, I don't know where I have it. But what we're eventually going to do in here is anytime you put in something that's non-numeric for a numeric field, it's going to kick it out. Anytime you put anything out of range, it's going to kick it out. So we're going to do true, almost total validation in here. All right, I think that's a good thing. All right. Last thing I want to show you before we start is, if you look at this, everybody see this? So we just copied that, right? You may know this, you may not, but I'm just showing it to you. Let's say Evan goes home. I don't know if he lives at home or not, or if he's got his own place. I don't care. Well, let's pretend for a second he lives at home. And he wants to show his brother what he's been doing so far. All right? So he comes in here. If he brings up the code, and if his brother doesn't know about code, he's probably going to get bored really fast. At least I would. All right? But if you find this payroll folder, and if you click on that, double-click on it, and double-click on the bin folder, and you double-click on the debug, see the thing there that says EXE? That's the executable version of your program. So if you double-click on that, it brings it up. See that? So if you ever want to show somebody what you're working on, all right, that's what you'll do. Now, for Josh, for you and Devin, for you guys, this won't make a lot of sense. But by the end of the semester, you are required in here to create an electronic portfolio for yourself. I will give you a bunch of resources because you haven't had the first class, all right, and show you how to do it. These guys have already done it. But the point is, you're going to have to add some of your visual or your C# stuff in here. All right? And I think I've shown you this already, but I am anyway going to show you it again anyway because I just want you to see it. This is Brady's. He's one of the second-year students. And when you look under work samples, no, I'll go to the about. That's all the stuff he can do now. He's worried because he's got to add here, he's got to take all this stuff and move it over, and he's got to add their Java and Android. He's not sure if he's going to have enough room on the screen to do that. All right? But this is the kind of thing that you'll do, and, all right, I've got to get more, better off about, you notice his? It's totally responsive. You see that? Boy, I had some of my second-year students, they missed the boat when I said the word responsive. And I even told them I'm not going to take off for that. I will now. They've already been warned. All right. So you will all be creating something like this. Again, yours won't be nearly as big, nearly as extensive as his. But by the time you're in your fourth semester, of course it will be. And my recommendation, some of you have heard me say this already, is, let's see, show you. This is Collins. I think it's here. No? I think it might just be under C. Fugner. All right. That's Colin right there. You know who he is. All right. But with him, he went nuts with some of this stuff. He's actually got stuff moving. He put video and stuff in it. I wouldn't expect that, but if you want to, you can. But what I told people was, and I think he's done it, that's why I wanted to show this to you. Of course, probably now that I said I think he's done it, he probably hasn't. Here's his resume, and I don't see it on here, but you should put a link to that portfolio on your resume. All right, because if you get called for a job, even if it's a summer internship doing something in IT, all right, they might say you have a sample of some of your work. You send them the resume and you say there's a link to my electronic portfolio on there. That puts you way above a lot of people who are applying for jobs. All right? All right, enough sermon. So we now have this second program that we're doing. This is 3A, so again, we're going to double click on it. And again, we're going to double click on the solution file to bring it up. This was the one, if you remember, that we created. Some of you may have added first name and last name. I didn't. You can do that if you want to. You don't have to do that. All right? Now, again, just a couple shortcuts you may or may not be aware of. All right? If I take my mouse and I put it on my folder here and I right mouse click, I can always choose view code. And it'll allow me to go right to the code mode. Or, you may have seen that already, I can hit the F7 function key and it does the same thing. There are a boatload of built-in shortcuts in here. All right? Also, I just want you to see this. You don't have to do anything with it. You notice we have, here we've got that, this is the file we're using, this form CS. That's our file with our code in it. Everybody agree? All right. See, we've got another file here. There's nothing in it right now that we put in, but look. See that? That's main. You typically don't put anything into a main in a GUI program. Because all main's doing there is it's saying, start everything up for me, for lack of better words. All right? I would recommend never going in there and jacking with that main. Okay? Now, I've had people say, no, you're wrong. And they can give you a very valid reason. Then do it. It's your program. But anytime I'm going to change anything that could really affect my program, especially in a bad way, I'm making a copy first. All right? Okay. And we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about source control and a few other things in not that long a time. So, we're right here. Well, the first thing we're going to do is when we come in here is we're going to go in and we're going to add those constants. Because we're going to do the same kind of stuff in here. Does that make sense? All right. So we could have copied them over. I've typed fairly fast, I think. So I'm going to put it right here. So I'm going to say declare and initialize program constants. In fact, maybe if I'm lucky here. Yep, I still do have them. Good. Or at least I've got most of them. All right, so there they are. I also need my OT rate, which I don't have right now. Got to spell rate correctly. Now again, I'm assuming that you don't have the first name and you don't have the last name. If you put those in, you'd have to put in more code than we're going to put in right now. Does that make sense to everyone? If you wanted to do some work for debugging that or whatever, or validating that. I'm trying to keep this really, really simple. Does everybody have these variables? Yes.
So we need to put those in?
You will need, we will be using these.
Okay.
Yeah. And notice they're at the top of the program, or almost the top. They're not in any routine. It's considered totally okay to put constants up at the top of the program and make them global to the program. Yes.
So you OT rate, that's supposed to be something for?
No, you're right. That should be 1.5. Thank you. So yeah, never have to worry about accidentally making errors. I make enough on my own, and people find them. Tiffany in my class yesterday, she kept saying, "You didn't do this, you didn't do that," because I did a lot of copy and paste yesterday. We rewrote a really long program. It was about, I don't know, it was like around 400 lines, something like that. And so after a while, we were doing a lot of copy and pasting. Thank you. I always appreciate when I miss something and people find it for me. I'm never offended. I'm just happy. I want you to put it in there correctly. You don't have to line this stuff up like little soldiers. I don't really care. I do it because I'm anal retentive. All right? Or as my brother would just say, no, you're just an anal. Okay. Any questions on any of those? Everybody gets those constants, correct? You understand now how we're going to use those constants in our program, correct? All right? All right. We are going to make some changes in here. And what I mean is this, okay? The magic all happens right here. Would everybody agree with that? That's the magic of the program. We're saying grab the thing, that whatever that thing is, grab the thing that we had in the text box for hours, grab the thing that we had in the text box for rate, multiply them, and take that thing and put it in that other text box. Now, I'm sorry for that really complicated explanation, but does that make sense? That is where the magic happens. All right? So, whether you realize it or not, if you look here, the difference between this program and the other program is not just the fact that the other one has a main, and this one we don't do anything with the main. We're already starting to write routines. We're saying when you click the calculate button, put this code in. When you click the clear button, put this code in. When you click the exit button, put this code in. Does that make sense? Good, because we're going to pull that code out of each one of those routines and give it its own routine. All right? Why are we doing that? Because, again, I'm going to show you something. It's not advanced. Once we do it, and you do it, it's like, wow, that was simple. Because when we get done, when we run this in just a minute, not only are we going to have this stuff, it's going to look exactly the same, but we're going to have 3 menu options up here. One that says calculate, one that says clear, and that shouldn't say button exit, and one that says exit. All right? And you'll be able to either click a button or choose a menu option. So now when Evan goes home and runs this executable for his brother, he'll be really impressed, because there's 2 ways that you'll be able to run the program, either by a button click, all right, or by clicking a menu option. Since we want to run the same code, once I've got calculate up here, whether I click this or click this, that's why we're going to grab that and put it in its own routine. Okay? Now, is that hard? Not in the slightest. The first thing I'd like you to do, let's do the exit button first. Okay? I'd like you to go down to this exit button here. All right? And before we even change anything, we're going to go and right below this last curly brace, so right below here, we're going to type in this, public, I'm sorry, private. We'll make it private because the other stuff is private. Private, void, we'll call it exit or not. Just like that. All right? I'm having you write the routine first, because if we call the routine from up here and we hadn't written it yet, please look on the screen. If we called exit or not from up here and we didn't write it yet, we get an error message. All right? So we just wrote that routine. And then I want you to grab everything, the entire if statement, so all the guts, right there. And highlight it all, do a Control X to copy it to the clipboard, and do a Control V to paste it in there. All right? And then I want you to come back up here, and I'll leave this all up here, and type in exit or not, just like that. So what we just did right there is we wrote, and now instead of putting the code inline in our click event, we are calling a routine. Does that make sense? You say, why the heck would you want to do that? It's not that you have to do that. It's considered a better way of doing it. We're going to do this to the other two routines too in just a second. Then we'll add our menu stuff. All right?
So if we said public void, what would have been the...
Okay, the difference is, the question is, if you'd have said, with all these being private, that means they can only be called from within this program. If you made it public, other things could call it. That might be kind of strange to have some other routine, I'm sorry, bless you, some other class be able to call exit. All right? So, now I can see, first of all, did the magic work? So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run it, and there should be no difference. So when I click exit, do I want to exit? No. Do it again. Do I want to exit? Yes. Still works. You know, sometimes small victories are the big ones. Okay? So now I'm going to move up in my program, and right underneath where I've got my button clear, yes, sir.
My button exit is at the top of all of those?
It should be just because you double-clicked on that one first. It doesn't matter. Okay, the question, the comment was, my button click for the exit is above the other ones. Whichever one you click first, that's where it's going to be. Technically, you can highlight them and move them, but sometimes weird stuff happens in Microsoft software when you move stuff around. All right, after it's been set. So now I'm going to grab these 5 lines right here, 4 lines. I'm sorry. I'm going to grab these 4 lines. All right, and just for now, in fact, I won't even do that yet. Underneath here, I'm going to call private, void. We'll call it clear all. Now I can come in and grab all this stuff, paste it into here, and up here, call clear all. Does anybody remember? Some of you didn't on your test, but does anybody remember when you start this with a capital letter and each other one is a capital letter, what that's called? Pascal casing. If I had done it like this with a little c, then it would be camel casing. All right? And why did I use a big C instead of a little c? The answer, you believe it or not, you already know that. The answer is right here. Because main's got a big M. In most other languages, main's got a little m. So you use camel casing. Here you use Pascal casing. Because main is the thing that's kind of driving, for lack of better words, everything else that we're doing here. All right, let me get rid of that. Okay? So now we've taken that code out of our buttons click event and put it in its own routine, and we're calling it from the buttons click event. Okay? Again, the key, what did they say? The proof is in the pudding. So I want to click here. I want to put something in here. I want to put something in here. Click clear. Boom, it works. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to hit escape, and it still works. I didn't break anything. Whenever you make major changes to your code, you should always test everything that could conceivably break. All right? Now, the last thing that we want to do is this. And I will do this. I'm going to write a routine right underneath my button calculate, and I'm going to call that calculate gross pay. All right. Now, it may not be done yet. I might have to do other things in here. Everybody hear what I said? I may have to change some of the stuff that's in here. But for now, I can now grab all of this, put it in here, and from here I can call Calculate gross pay. All right? And again, I'll come right back to the code, but I want to make sure I didn't break anything. So, 50, 10, it should give me 550. No, we didn't do the overtime yet. 500. That works. I didn't break anything. Do you understand so far? Do you understand what we've done? We've just taken code out of the routine that you would think it almost would naturally go in, put it in another routine. Now I want to show you why we're doing that. But I want to wait until everybody's got it keyed in. Any questions on anything thus far? We're going to make major changes to this calculate thing in just a minute. All right? We're going to make major changes to our calculate routine. Everybody caught up? All right. Then if you would please go back to what's called our design mode right here. Right there. All right. Make sure your toolbox is up, so do a view toolbox if you have to, or however you bring it up. Yeah, come on. There we go. Okay. So we're in our toolbox. Any questions? I want you to find a tool, they're all alphabetized, that's called menu strip, and literally take it and just drag it up to the top corner and let it go. If you said you did that too fast. Find the tool that's called menu strip that's right here. Hold down it, click on your left mouse button, hold it down, drag it up, and put it up in the upper left-hand corner, right there. Now you probably figured this out because it says type here. So we're going to type in there what? We're going to type in there calculate. Calculate. Then to the right of it where it says type here, we're going to type in clear. And then to the right of that, we're going to type in exit. We now have menu options. If that didn't work, or if you think you did it right and it didn't come up, raise your hand. I'm more than happy to walk around and show you.
So in Designer, I open the toolbox.
Yeah, but you don't want to be in your code mode here. You're not when I say designer, okay, go back, double click on form1.cs. That's actually your designer. Not your designer file, I'm sorry, this file. The one that has the picture on it, so to speak.
Right.
So double click on what there. Now, do a view and click toolbox about halfway down. All right. Then find the one that says menu item. Click with your left mouse button, hold down on it. Menu strip, I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah, there you go, right there. Now, click inside of there where it says type here, type calculate. Click on the one next to it, and type clear, and then click on the one that will come up after that and type in exit. Any other questions? Anybody have any problem with that? Does it pretty much make sense what we're doing? All right. You literally can make quite a complicated menu system like Microsoft has. You could now, enough that you could literally do that if you wanted to, or do this one. Now, I'm not saying that every operation in there would work, but you could do that without really very much work. All right. And notice these have things going down. Well, all we have to do for that is when this comes up, you go down like this. See that? I just went across for the menu options that we have so far. Now, if you look up on the screen, everybody, please. I don't like the names that they give you for these. So if you click here and you go up to the name, they actually call this calculate tool strip menu item. I don't like that. So I think it's better to just call it calculate menu item. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to remove the tool strip from here. And then I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to remove the tool strip from there. And then I'm going to go over to the next one, my exit, and remove the tool strip from there. Now, if you say, you know what, I like that name, then keep it. All right? Now, remember this, if you look up on the screen here, everybody please, right there, when you click a button, it goes to that button's click event, correct? Well, you may or may not be aware of it, but if I click the menu item, guess what it does? Well, you better. There you go. It goes to that menu item's click event. So what do we want to do? We want to call calculate gross pay from here. That's what we want to do from the menu for calculate. Then for our clear, we want to call clear all. And then finally, from our exit, we want to call our exit or not. That's it. So if I save this and run it, you already know the buttons work, but notice I can come in here, 50, 20. Now I can click my menu that says calculate. There it is. I can click my clear. I can click my exit. So now I now have two ways of iterating my way around my interface. I can either use the buttons or I can use the menu items. All right, and again, I've said this to you before, and I'm not trying to be funny here. If you're thinking, you know, he's going way too frickin' fast, I'm not understanding anything, you have to let me know that. And if you feel funky about letting me know in front of the rest of the class, send me an email. All right? But I'm hoping what we're doing so far has been straightforward enough that it's making sense. So now we're just calling those routines from two different places. If we didn't do that, if we kept the code in our button event, and I want you to hear this because this is pretty doggone important. If we kept the code in our button event, you literally can call the button's click event from a menu item. You can do that. There's not a problem doing that. The problem is this. What if later on I keep adding stuff to the screen and somebody says, get rid of those buttons. We don't want them anymore. We're going to do everything from our menu. And if you've got the code only in your button event and you forget that and you remove the code, guess what? You get to type it in again. All right? So let's go and write our calculate routine now, this calculate gross pay. We're going to make massive changes. I'm hoping we can get this done by the end of class today. If we get this done, I'd like to have at least 5 minutes. We'll take our vote, and if we have to, we'll flip our coin to see whether you take the test tomorrow, the written test for Chapter 2 tomorrow, or whether you take the written test for Chapter 2 on Friday. Either way is fine. Yes.
You're still getting our test back?
Yes, you will. I haven't had a chance to quickly go over them. I'll show them to you. They haven't been put in inside ranking yet, but I'll show them to you. You'll just have to give them back to me. All right? All right. So the first thing I want to do, I eventually want to take the hours, and I eventually want to take the rate, and I want to get them from the text boxes. Would you agree with that? But what if the person put hello in there? Right now, when I do this, you've already seen this, but I'm showing you it again anyway. Hello. Goodbye. What's going to happen when I click this? It's going to crash. And it crashed on the first one, never even got to the second one. We don't want that. All right, we want to be able to put hello in, and we want it to tell you, hey, you got to put a number in here, and it's got to be between 0 and 84. Hey, you got to put a number in here, and it's got to be between 0 and 100. Well, we don't have that right now, so that's what we're going to add right now. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to just set this equal to 0.0. And we're going to set this equal to 0.0. And as you probably guess, we're going to set this equal to 0.0. All right? So in other words, we're taking all three of our variables and we're setting them up so that they're now 0. Okay? Well, what we want to do with our program, if you all look on the screen, please, if I put something illegal in for hours worked, I want to give you an error. So if I put hello in there, what I want to have happen is I want it to give me a message box that says numbers only, must be between 0 and 84. And then when you click the OK button, if I put hello in there, I want hello to disappear, and I want my cursor to go right there. Does that make sense? But I don't want to go any further. I don't want it to go and check hourly rate. You see what I'm saying? So we're going to use something that the actual fancy schmancy term for it is we're going to use what's called a finite state machine. We're going to say, validate the hell out of this. If it's invalid, keep you right there. Once that's valid, move to here, validate the hell out of this. Once it's valid, then do the calculation to put the number there. But if there's a problem with any one of these, let the user know what the problem is and get out. All right? And the way we're going to do that is we're going to create, so I'm going to come in here and we're going to create another variable, bool, and I'm going to just call it keep going. You don't like that name, you can call it something else. You can't use the word continue, which is what we want to do, and you can't use the word continue because continue is a key word. All right? Now, it's a Boolean, so what values can I give it? True or false? I'm going to assume you don't want to keep going. In fact, let's do it the other way. Let's assume, yeah, you know what? You do want to keep going. All right? I probably should put my little comments here. Employee hours worked. Employee hourly rate. Employee gross pay. And finally, program continue variable. Somebody tell me, why am I getting those underlines there? We haven't used it yet. Very good. We've declared it. We've even initialized it. We're not doing a doggone thing with it. This line of code, we don't need to keep, well, did I keep it in here? I'm just wondering how I did this. We'll keep it in here for now. All right? But we're going to use this keep going all over the place now. All right? And in order to be able to do this, we're going to say this. We're going to tell it to validate everything. So the first thing I'm going to do, in fact, for right now, I'm just going to comment this out. All right? I don't want there to be any errors. But I'll put it back in later. So I'm going to say keep going equals, I'm going to get an error when I do this because I'm going to call a routine that does not yet exist. Did you all hear what I said? I'm going to call a routine that I haven't written yet. So I want to validate two things, right? I want to validate hours and I want to validate rate. And if my hours are okay and my rate is okay, my gross will have to be okay. All right? So I'm going to call validate rate. All right? Now, I want to call validate rate, and if you go down here, I can type this in, private. You're going to see this in just a minute, so don't worry about it. You'll have time to type it in, but I'm going to type in here private, and I'm going to type in double, not void, and I'm going to say validate rate. Okay? The problem is, right here, right now, I'm getting an error here because I'm not returning anything. And I'm telling the system I'm returning a double. And I'm not. So even if I typed in here, return 0.0. Now that error goes away. All right? And I got an error here. And that's because I didn't put in my semicolon. All right, what else didn't I do? Cannot implicitly convert type double. Okay, that's good. I'm glad I did this because I screwed up. What is keep going? What kind of variable is it? Not a trick question. What is keep going? All right, so I'm going to set something. That better be a bool. Sorry, my error. So we'll return here, just so we got something there, return false. Now all of our errors have gone away. All right, but we haven't done any code in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm saying here, keep going is this. So when I get done writing this routine, when I get done writing that, this is going to either have a value of true or false. Does that make sense? If it's true, that means my hours we're good. So if it's true, and there's two ways I can write this. I can say if keep going equal true. All right? So I can do that. That's not how I'm going to write it. I'm going to just write if keep going. That's a shortcut. Same as. I'm going to write if keep going because it's less typing. Okay? So that means this is true. So I tried to validate the rate. The rate was okay. So what do I want to do next? And it should have been valid hours here, but that's fine. It doesn't matter which order we do them in, but I'm going to change this to validate hours. Sorry. Hours, and I'll make this one hours. All right. Now I can copy this one. And now I can put in my validate rate. All right. So if my hours were valid, now I can say keep going equals validate rate. All right. Somebody answer this question for me, please. If I hit this line of code, what does this mean if I'm in here? What does that mean?
Hours were invalid.
Hours were invalid. I want to get out, don't I? I put something in there that was invalid. So really I want to do three things. First thing is I want to take whatever's in that text box. Text box hours worked, dot text, and I want to get rid of it. I'm clearing it out. Okay? Then I want to set the focus there, so I want the mouse or the cursor to go right in there. And then, I'll give you the real technical term here. I want to get the hell out. I'm done. All right? So you'll notice, there's the semicolon there. Okay? You'll notice that right now, I haven't written these routines yet, correct? They're just returning false. So I'm going to call this, all right? I'm going to call this, and for the hours, it is immediately, doesn't matter what I put in there. As soon as I put in something for hours, it's going to call this, it's going to return false. This will be false, so it should do this. Does that make sense? All right. So let me save this and run it. Now I can put in whatever I want. Click calculate. See what happened? That's pretty cool. What didn't I do? Is there anything I didn't do right there? What? There you go. I didn't let the user know that they screwed up. So I probably want to add that too. All right. So let me just exit this. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'd rather have you even watch. All right. What I'll do is, however far we get in this today, I'll run you all off a copy of this. Okay. So you've got one. You'll have the code. All right. But I'm more concerned with you looking at this and understanding what's going on. All right. So, yeah, I want to come in here. I've already got one of those message boxes that I've done here, right? So I'm going to write myself a little message box. And it'll say invalid hours must be between, you know how to do this now, plus min hours plus and plus max hours. Cut this down a little bit, put this on two lines like this. All right, so that'll give me that message that says invalid hours, and then here this will be the title. I'm just going to put here invalid hours. All right, you know what? I don't need a yes or no. I'm telling you that, and you get the hell out now. So I'm just going to make that an okay. And this is a bad thing you just did. So I'm going to make that a warning. See that? Now, just stop for a second. Even if you're typing, just stop for a second. Now see what we've done? We've let the user know that it's invalid. We've let them know what the range is. They click OK, it's cleared, and they're there. There's not much more we can do for the user. If they keep putting in stuff that's out of range, it's their problem. If you are writing an application that you're going to have people use that don't work for a company, let's say you're writing a game or something, you might want to put a lot more code in there to help them. All right? And, as an example, if you look up on the screen here, we could put a help thing in here, couldn't we? Couldn't we add a help item we wouldn't need a button, but couldn't we add help in our menu? And we could tell people, you must do this, you must put a number in. That way, if they were totally hosed, they could click help. If they don't know enough to even click help, you reach a certain point. All right? I had a student years ago at the school I used to work at, and he was an excellent student. But the problem was, he only came when he felt like coming. When he came, he did everything he was supposed to do. He got A's on tests, but he only came about a quarter of the time, etc. And you want to guess what grade he got? He got an F. All right? And I was talking to my boss, and I said how hard that was. And he said, hey, he's the one who exercised the right to fail. It wasn't you. And it's the same thing. If the person keeps putting in garbage, you can keep telling them, but then they're going to either you have to, after a certain point, say you're hopeless, or you have to let them keep putting in garbage. But you already saw what we have here. All right, you already saw that. And what I mean here is, we now have that. The good news is, I can grab this routine right here, and well, what do I want to do? Geez, now I got that if else, if it's keep going. Well, down below this, I'm going to guess what I'm going to type in again. If, keep going, then I want to call my calculate, we'll just call it calculate gross. Actually, we've got to calculate gross pay. All right? Otherwise, again, else. And the good news is I can copy all this code. All right, invalid rate must be between min rate and max rate. Invalid rate. All right, text box hourly rate. And text box hourly rate. Okay, you see that there's so much code that's the same. All right, what I want to do, I promise, I'll give you all a copy of this, so if you want to see it at the end of class, that's fine. But I'd like to write the actual routine in here. It's not really very difficult when you think about it. But let's write the routine that will validate. We'll start with hours. All right? So I don't want to just return false. That's assuming no matter what I put in, it's wrong. I don't want to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do, some of this isn't going to make a lot of sense until we go through it. All right? So what do I want to do? I want to validate the hours. So I'm going to make a local variable here. And it's going to be called H. H means hours. All right, I'm going to set it equal to 0.0. That value in there is going to be my hours. That's what it's going to be. All right, so again, I'm going to put in a bit of code, quite a bit of code, I guess, and we'll go over it after I put it all in. Is that okay? All right, so probably about 20 lines or so. in English, this line of code right here, in English, this line of code says what we are about to do here. Oops. What we are about to do is we want to take whatever value they put into that text box and we want to try to convert it into a double. If it does work, put the result into H. In English, that's what we're telling it to do. Now, I think you'd all agree, it may not work. If we put something non-numeric, it may not work. So this value that's right here, this result, it's a Boolean. It's a Boolean. What is it going to hold? True or false. So we could say if result equal false, I don't want to do that. That's too much typing. So I can also say if not result. Again, means, all right, I'll take the less typing every time. And right now it's giving me this squiggly because I've got an if statement and I don't have anything after it. Okay? Well, what do I want to do? Well, let's see. Let's think about first what we want to do. Well, I think we want to do a lot of what we talked about before. We want to say something like invalid rate, and not invalid rate. We want to say something like invalid hours, etc. But, so I'm going to copy all of that code right there, all of it, and I'm going to throw it in here. All right. And I'm not going to say invalid hours. I'm going to say non-numeric hours. All right. Now I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to say return true. All right, that got rid of all my errors. But now notice what happens. Now when I run this and I put something non-numeric in, now see what happens. Non-numeric hours. All right? So I'm letting them know. I still have my other check. We'll change that in just a bit. Okay? You'll see it in just a second. So that'll handle non-numeric hours. What else can possibly happen in here? What else can somebody screw up on? So if you're right here, you can do one of three things. You can put something non-numeric, you can put a numeric number within range, and you can put a numeric number not within range, right? Less than 0 or greater than 84. All right? So we've got an if. Now we're going to put in else. And it's going to be very similar to that check we made before. Else if the hours are less than the min hours, should look real familiar to you, or the hours are greater than the max hours. All right. What do we want to do? We want to do this same thing in here. But we don't want it to say numeric hours. We want it to say out of range hours. All right. Now, if we run this and we put a number in here that's real big, now we get out of range hours. We're always trying to give the user a message that lets them know what they did wrong. So that was out of range. If we do it again and we put in this, it's not out of range, it's non-numeric. So we're always trying to let them know what they did wrong. Does that make sense? All right. If they get down this far and it is numeric, so that failed. It's within range. Now we're down to here. So now we've got an actual valid number that we put in there. That's the good thing. That's what we're hoping for. All right? So what do we do in that case? We're already doing it. You just return true. It was a valid number. All right? So I'm going to grab every bit of this that I just did, my validate hours. I'm going to grab everything that's in here, all of it. All right? I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to paste it into validate rate. Now I've got to manually go in here, and everywhere, I'm going to make it R, I don't have to, but everywhere that I've got hours worked, I want to change it to hourly rate. And I want that to be an R. I want this to be rate. 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 You get the idea. Okay, now that we're doing all this stuff, now we can change this down here that just says, hey, if keep going is true, keep going. Otherwise, we've already done this in valid hours. Just return. All right. Else, return. Now let's look at it and see if it seems to handle everything. There were errors. Okay, then let's find the errors. It says I'm never using rate. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, that means I guess I don't need it right here. Or I do. Notice I'm not using hours, I'm not using rate, I'm not using gross. Would you agree with that? They're still got the squigglies under them. That's what these all are. Now, I also got the name H doesn't exist because I didn't change that R to an H, or H to an R. That got rid of that one. But this is the problem. I'm creating the variable here that's called hours. That means it's local. It's only known in this routine. I want to change that variable here. All right? So what I have to do is I have to do what's called pass that variable in. So I have to say there hours. See how that went away now? And then I've got to come down here by validate hours, and what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to type in here double, should be able to say H. And now I shouldn't need that variable anymore. All right? And I'm going to do the same thing for rate. So this is going to say, I'm going to have to pass rate into here. And this will have to change. So for the rate routine, this will be double R. And then I shouldn't need this. All right? And then finally, when I call calculate gross pay, I'll need to pass it in hours. And I'll need to pass it in rate. All right, where's my calculate gross pay? I hope I still have that here. I don't know where it is. Well, that's what I call this routine. Okay, so I'll just call it, I don't know, do the gross. Do the gross now. Do the gross now. And if you remember, do I still have that? No. If we didn't care anything, if we didn't care at all about overtime, then we could just come in here and type in double G equals hours times rate. In fact, we don't even need to do that. We can just say return That would be all we'd have to do if we weren't putting in any overtime. So actually, technically, the program should be just about finished. All right, so I'm going to click here. I'll put in nothing. Okay, it says non-numeric. I put in something that's out of range. It says out of range, good. So I put in something that's within range. Now I get non-numeric rate, good. I put in something that's out of range. I get non-numeric range, that's good. Oh, that's the problems of copy and paste. I removed the wrong value here, I gotta fix that. But let's 40 and 20. I didn't tell it to, remember that line I commented out before? All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly fix this and run you all off a copy. And then we'll spend about 15 minutes going over it. And if you go, this was so frickin' far over my head, just go back and look at it. Sometimes the best way to learn this too is go back, put in some comments. See if you understand what's happening at different points in the program. All right? I mean, I threw a hell of a lot at you in a very, very, very short amount of time. All right? So this was the rate. Rate. See that? That should be rate, and it was not. So that should be hourly rate. That's why that got that error before. And that should be hourly rate. All right. And once I've done all that stuff, at the end of my routine, where I just return the hours times rate, I'd have to also say text box gross pay dot text equals that, what is it, gross? Oh, I'm going to need that too. Do the gross now. So let's see. I'll have to say something like this. Double GP for gross pay equals hours times rate. And that's what we'll return, but we'll say here text box gross pay dot text equals GP dot toString. We'll make it pretty with a $sign and stuff in there. Return GP. All right. So it's done, except that right now it does not handle overtime. 40, 20. Well, it's not, wherever I'm doing that, I'm losing that value. Okay? My clear works, my exit works, etc. It's trying to do a calculation, it's just not finding it. So we've got here hours, we've got rate, double GP, textbox dot gross pay. Huh. Well, I'll have to fix that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do right now, though, is I'm going to take this, it's 90% of the way finished. All right, I'm going to make a copy for everybody in class. Signs, landscape. 2, 3, 4, 8. Print. Now, the biggest worry that I have, to be honest with you, is with the two of you. That you go home tonight and you go, my God, this guy just is out of his mind. He gave us all this crap and he threw all this stuff at it. I don't know what 99% of it was. All I wanted to do was to show you the kind of thing we're going to be doing. That's all. If it doesn't totally make sense, that is actually to be expected. If you came into this class and never had written any a lick of code in your life, and you said, I understood 100% of this, I'd be amazed. And it's not because you're, it's not a criticism of either one of you, but I think, wow, I sure as hell wouldn't have. All right. But it's a beginning point. So I took what we did that was pretty simple and added some validation to it. Because being able to add validation and make stuff work regardless of the circumstance, that's what a programmer does. All right. So what I will do tomorrow, all right, for tomorrow, is I will fix this up And after I get it fixed up, all right, I will put it in, I will take the folder and I will zip the folder and email all of, you'll all have a copy tomorrow. Does that make sense? All right. It's pretty close right now. And I'll tell you what, sometimes people like this stuff. They like it when it's stapled. Sometimes they don't like it stapled, so I'm not going to staple this. There's a stapler up here, so if you want to come up and staple it after you get it, then staple it. And if you don't, and of course I forgot, for some reason I said double side and it didn't do double side. That's why I got so many pages. There's 5 pages. All right, while I'm doing this, because I hopefully can multitask, how many people, raise your hands, how many people would rather take the Chapter 2 written test tomorrow? 1. How many people would rather take the Chapter 2 written test on Thursday? No, Friday, before you take the other test. Well, not everybody voted, but it still was a majority, so Evan, you lose. All right? So when you come in here on Friday morning, I will give everybody the written test for Chapter 2. All right? Everybody. And let's say around 8:45, because that'll still give you 3 hours. I think a lot of you are going to finish this test like in a half an hour. I really do. Because if all I'm testing you on is chapters 1 and 2, it's not that much to test you on. All right? All right, as soon as I get this all sorted out here, because it didn't collate either, as you can see, as soon as I get all this stuff sorted out, then I'm going to, if you have your books with you, I'm going to tell you for chapters 1 and 2 what assignment numbers I expect you to do. Tomorrow then will be lab for the entire period for you to work on. All right? Please, do the best you can to try to get as much stuff done in class as you can. Then you don't have to be doing a lot of stuff at home. All right? And try to keep ahead. I think some people in here will tell you, yeah, you don't want to fall behind in this class. All right? Again, there is a stapler. I advise using the small one if you want to. You can use the big one, but it puts an industrial strength staple in there. But that's up to you.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah.
I got yours. You gotta go. Yeah, you're good. You too?
So again, look at this. We will come back to this program again, and we will keep doing refinements of this program. Everybody hear what I just said? We will come back to this program again, and we will do refinements. So as we go into some new topic, all right, then we will add stuff to this. All right. Chapter 1. You've done the written test now, and if you would please, in your books, and I know 1 or 2 of you are still waiting on your books to come, so let me bring this up electronically as well. So, chapter 1, I'd like you to please turn to page 44. On page 44, I would like you to do programs 7, 8, and 9. So 7, it's kind of a silly program. You're going to create kind of a wine glass. 8, you can use your name, your initial if you want, whatever you want, and 9. Now, I want to tell you what's different about me and Evan, who teaches this class in St. Louis. There's a lot of differences between us. He's 20 years younger, a lot better looking, but that doesn't matter. Okay, the biggest difference is what Evan does is he makes people do every single exercise. I have found that, especially with last semester, a lot of times I think you felt deluged with stuff. All right, and you're like, geez, I'd like to have a life. I'm getting homework in other classes or whatever. So I'm not going to try to give you homework in every class. I would like you also on the next page to do these debugging exercises. You go, wait a minute, what the hell are you talking about debugging exercises? All right. Well, do you remember this? That, in fact, I'm sorry, I got to go into Inside Rankin for this. I showed you that if you look on here, and you might have to search for it a little bit, but something in here, someplace in here, you've got your syllabus online. All right, there it is. And if you click on that, in fact, I don't want this. What is it? What do I want to show you? Maybe it is in the syllabus. I don't know. No. I know right where it is. You don't have to go to the syllabus. On the main page for the course. All right? We were here yesterday or Monday. If you click here where it says Student Companion Website, if you click on that, there's the student downloads, and there are the files. You see what I'm saying? I'd rather have you do it. You should have a total familiarity and a comfort level with downloading stuff on your own machine. So again, all you have to do is just inside Rankin, all right, you'll just have to go over there. All right, that's where those debugging exercises are. So 7, 8, 9, and then the debugging exercises on page 45. Did everybody hear that? If you missed it, this should still be being taped. It is, and boy, it's way the hell too long. But then for chapter 2, if you would please turn to page 97. Find it now. Come on, 97. For chapter 2, it sounds like a lot, but just hear me out if you would. I'd like you to do programs 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. Now, number 5 is miles to kilometers. Number 10 is miles to kilometers interactive. So you're going to be doing them as both a console program and as a GUI program. Does that make sense? So you should be able to grab the logic out of one and put it into the other one. I don't care which one you do first. All right, but that's the same program. So 5 and 6 is the same program. 7 and 8 is the same program. All right? And then 10 is a program with hours and minutes. All right? Also, turning the page then. I'd like you to do program 16. Some of these programs, you're like, man, that's a hell of a lot of work. They're 3 or 4 lines long. They're really short. All right? And then again, on the next page, on 99, I'd like you to do the debugging exercises. We'll do the debugging for a while until people say, I'm pretty comfortable with this. Then I'll just give you ones at the end of the chapter. Does that make sense? Let me put this up there one more time, just so you all see it, so nobody can say, what? So page 44, so for chapter, for chapter 1, page 44, numbers 7, 8, and 9. Page 45, the debug exercises. And for chapter 2, page, 97? We want to do 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. And then 16 from the next page. And on page 99, the debug exercises. Now, that seems like a lot to do, and I'm not even going to say that it's not. You have 4 hours tomorrow. If you come in here and dedicate yourselves to this, you should be able to get it done. I'm around if you have questions. What I'm going to be doing tomorrow is I'm going to be writing your test while you're doing this. This won't be on. That's when you have your hands-on test, I will let you know what it's going to be, basically. But I won't say, it's going to be this, do this, then do this, then do this. Because if I'm going to do that, why the hell am I giving you a hands-on test? All right?
So these are due when
These are actually,
hands-on test?
no, what did we say on here? Let's look. All right. It says due day 4 at the beginning of class. Well, that's tomorrow, so that sure as hell isn't going to happen. Let's do this, okay? Just in case people have problems with the first one, we'll make chapter 1 and 2 stuff due Tuesday when you come in here, all right? I don't want to hear that I screwed up your MLK holiday, that I made you work, all right? So do as much as you can tomorrow, all right? And think about this. Friday, now because you voted, you're taking that written test. Okay? It's 8:45. I give you the chapter 1 and 2 test. Let's say that takes you an hour. Now it's 9:45. You have 2 more hours to work on this on Friday. All right? You should have enough time. I try to gauge it as best I can. Occasionally you have to do work at home. But I try to set it up so that I minimize that as much as possible. So, get rid of that. There it is. Okay? That's the homework. Any questions on anything I've said? Any questions? Yes.
Where do we find the debugging?
That's why I said you're gonna have to go in here.
To the student services thing?
In here where we just showed this. Under these book downloads.
Yeah.
And there should be, I think if you download the stuff for chapter, let's see, a zip file, you don't want that. Well, then they've changed this to run the way it used to be.
Yeah, I downloaded chapter 1 of the video.
All right, let's look. Let's look.
In data sets, there's chapter 12.
Al.
Debugging.
Give me a sec here, because I know otherwise I already have them on the E drive. Let me just double check. What are the names of these things? Easier to search that way.
All over.
I will find, hey, for tomorrow, it looks like that isn't the right place to download those debug exercises. I've got them someplace. I'm searching for it now. I'll find it. I'll put it on a flash drive. I'll pass around the flash drive tomorrow. I'll have the debug exercises for all 14 chapters on there. All right, I'll just make a folder that says debug exercises and throw all those other folders in there. All right? Because these aren't them.
That's great. That's on. That's been kind of off. It's an empty. It's just this.
Yeah, seriously. What are they doing?
Does everybody have this? I want to erase the board before you all got it? Good. I am going to send all of you, just so you see this, I'm going to send you all the URL by tomorrow. I took a class online from this guy who it was in something else, but he has written his own book. All right? And it's free if you get the Kindle edition. If you go, I don't have a Kindle. You can read Kindle stuff on a PC. All right? There's like a Kindle to PC software or something, but I'm going to give you that URL. And it's about 200 pages, I think. But you can see all the stuff that's in here. People learn in different ways. And if you can learn anything from looking at what this guy has and it helps you, hey, more power to you, that's great. I have no problem with that. All right, so I will send you that URL tomorrow.